forklift, a warehouse, and a truck, backing up to a loading bay like it belongs there because, on paper, it does. In under 3 hours, roughly 400 kilograms of Swiss gold bars and foreign currency, worth more than 20 million Canadian dollars at the time, disappeared out the front door of one of the busiest airports in North America. No sirens, no firearms, nobody reacts. A surveillance camera inside an Air Canada cargo facility at Toronto's Pearson International Airport captures the opening minutes of the largest gold robbery in Canadian history. And here's the part that should bother you. It all happened in full view of the people who were supposed to stop this very thing from happening. No one in this warehouse is fully aware of what has just happened right under their noses. Not yet. So how do you steal 400 kilograms of gold from a secured cargo facility without firing a shot? Well, you start in Switzerland. On the afternoon of April 17th, 2023, Air Canada Flight 881 leaves Zurich at 1:25 p.m. local time, carrying a Brinks secured container filled with refined gold bars of 99.99% purity and foreign currency, shipped on behalf of 2 Swiss companies, including the refiner Valcambi. The flight lands in Toronto at 3:56 p.m., and by 5:50 that evening, the container has been moved into an Air Canada holding facility at the airport, waiting for a scheduled pickup by Brinks later that night. Nothing about the day looks unusual yet. At 6:32 p.m., a 5-ton truck pulls into the cargo bay. The driver hands staff an air waybill, the routine shipping document that tells warehouse workers what's inside a load and where it's cleared to go. It looks legitimate enough to pass because, in a way, it is. Investigators later determine it's a forgery. It was an altered copy of a genuine waybill originally used for a seafood shipment picked up the day before, printed from a computer and printer that were both located inside Air Canada's own facility. Sit with that for a second. That detail is the whole case in miniature. Whoever built that forged document didn't sneak past security cameras or crack a lock. They had access to the airline's own internal paperwork, its own printers, its own systems. This wasn't a break-in, it was somebody working the system from the inside, using the airport's own machinery against it. Following the routine they'd use for any authorized pickup, staff load the container of nearly 6,600 individual gold bars, plus the currency onto the truck with a forklift. The truck pulls out and disappears into Toronto traffic. No alarms. No confrontation. At 9:30 p.m., Brinks Canada arrives for its scheduled collection. The container isn't there. Peel Regional Police get the call at 2:43 the following morning. What follows isn't a car chase. It's 4 weeks of investigators knocking on 225 businesses and homes, pulling security footage frame by frame to rebuild the truck's path. They trace it west on Highway 401, then north on Bronte Road, past Milton.
Once the gold was loaded, checking security camera footage from 225 different residences and businesses, the police tracked the truck's movements. It leaves the cargo facility. A camera at a truck leasing company catches it heading toward the highway.
Westbound on Highway 401. We continued to follow the truck and checked each exit that Highway 401 intersects with. This continues into Halton Region as the truck passes James Snow Parkway, and we observe the truck exit at Bronte Road and go northbound on Bronte Road.
A camera from a local church is the last image we have of the getaway.
After this, the trail simply stops. No more cameras. No more sightings. For months, that's where Project 24K sits stalled until an entirely unrelated police stop in another country hands investigators the thread they need. 5 months after the trail goes cold in Milton, the break doesn't come from Canada at all. It comes from Pennsylvania. Just after midnight on September 2nd, 2023, state troopers pull over a rental car in Franklin County, roughly 300 kilometers east of Pittsburgh. A routine traffic stop, nothing more, but the driver doesn't wait around to explain himself. He bolts from the car and takes off on foot. Troopers chase him down and catch him at the scene. Inside, they find 65 handguns, each one individually hidden in a sock. The driver is Durante King McLean, a Canadian man in his mid-20s. U.S. federal prosecutors charge him with conspiring to traffic firearms into Canada. And here's the connection that turns 2 separate cases into one. Peel police match a fingerprint from the abandoned Pearson getaway truck to King McLean. In the United States, he later pleads guilty to firearms trafficking conspiracy, and in June 2026 is sentenced to 160 months in federal prison. In Canada, though, he has never been convicted for the heist itself. He's charged with theft over $5,000 and possession of proceeds of crime, and legally remains the alleged getaway driver, not a convicted one, on that specific charge. That single fingerprint is what turns two separate cases into one. It's enough to pull the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives into a joint task force with Peel Regional Police, both agencies now working the same theory from opposite sides of the border. That gold stolen from a Canadian airport was being converted into cash to quietly fund a gun trafficking pipeline running north into Canada. They give the joint investigation a name that ties the whole case together, Project 24K, a direct reference to 24-karat gold. 1 year to the day after the theft, on April 17, 2024, Peel Regional Police hold a press conference and, for the first time, release the warehouse surveillance clip to the public, exactly the same footage that opened this investigation. Detective Sergeant Mike Mavity stands beside the actual seized getaway truck and confirms 9 people have been charged with 19 charges laid. 2 of those charged were internal, the biggest plot twist Air Canada never saw coming.
This was the largest gold heist in Canadian history.
Exactly 1 year ago, 6,600 gold bars weighing over 400 kilograms were stolen from Pearson International Airport. It had a value of over $20 million.
Investigators have identified and charged or issued warrants for 9 individuals with over 19 charges. We are alleging that some individuals who participated in this gold theft are also involved in aspects of this firearms trafficking.
I'm proud to say that we successfully put this international gun trafficking operation out of business. In this case, keeping 65 firearms off the streets of Canada and preventing them from being used in any number of violent crimes.
This isn't just about gold, this is about how gold becomes guns. And gold can be remade, but people's lives and what happens when guns are involved cannot.
But these criminals thought they were more sophisticated than police. They were wrong. This is an example of police work at its best.
Air Canada confirms one of the employees left last summer. The other one has been suspended. What they tell us is that anyone who works in an operational area for the airport has to get what is called a restricted area identification card. Those are administered by Transport Canada. They have to be renewed every 5 years. That includes an intensive background check. So theoretically, everybody has been vetted. This, of course, makes things very tricky for Air Canada. They're being sued by Brinks, the security company, who alleged that the airline was negligent and had lax security in.
Parmpal Sidhu, a 54-year-old warehouse worker from Brampton, and Simran Preet Panesar, then 31, also an Air Canada employee, who, in a detail that sounds almost invented, had personally given police a tour of the facility before he was identified as a suspect. Investigators display what they've recovered so far: 430,000 Canadian dollars in cash, 6 crudely cast pure gold bangles worth more than 89,000 Canadian dollars believed to be made from melted stolen bullion, and smelting, pots, molds, and casting equipment. The case's central figure doesn't surface until almost 3 years after the theft. On January 12, 2026, police arrest 43-year-old Arsalan Shahari at Pearson Airport as he steps off a flight arriving from Dubai, arrested at the very airport he allegedly helped rob. By this point, 10 individuals in total have been identified in connection with the case, with more than 21 charges laid across the file, and 2 suspects remain outstanding. Panesar, believed to be living in Punjab, India, with Canada having formally submitted an extradition request, and Prasad Paramalingam wanted on an outstanding Canada-wide warrant.
The man who admitted his role in a massive gold and cash heist at Pearson Airport is headed to prison. 44-year-old Arsalan Chaudhry was sentenced to 4 years after pleading guilty to theft over $5,000. He's also been given 40 years to pay back $22 million in restitution. 400 kilograms of gold and $2.5 million in foreign currency was stolen from a cargo area at the airport in 2023. Multiple suspects have been arrested in the case, while 2 others are still at large.
In April 2026, at a Brampton courthouse, Chaudhry pleads guilty. Prosecutors describe him in court as the top dog, the person most involved in planning the theft. The judge sentences him to 4 years in prison and orders him to repay the full amount of 22 million Canadian dollars in restitution, an order that stays in place for 40 years. With that guilty plea and sentence on record, Chaudhry is a convicted participant in Canada's largest gold theft. Here's where the case gets genuinely strange, and it's worth slowing down for. When Peel police first announced the theft, they described the loss as more than 20 million Canadian dollars, later rounded by most outlets to about 22.5 million Canadian dollars in gold and foreign currency combined. But CBC News went back and recalculated the value of that exact shipment using gold prices from April 2023 and the day of the heist, and got a very different number. 34.365 million Canadian dollars. Using gold prices from mid-2024 instead, that same shipment would be worth closer to 41 million Canadian dollars. CBC asked Brinks, TD Bank, the Swiss refiner Valcambi, and Peel Regional Police to explain that gap directly. All of them refused to answer. So there are at minimum two official-sounding figures for this heist. Roughly 22.5 million Canadian dollars and roughly 34 million Canadian dollars, and nobody involved has ever reconciled them on the record. What isn't in dispute is how little of it ever came back, outside of the cash, the bangles, and the smelting gear shown at that 2024 press conference. Police believe the overwhelming majority of the 400 kilograms of bullion was melted down almost immediately, some of it reportedly through a jewelry operation in the Mississauga area and moved out of the country, likely toward Dubai or India, where remelted gold can be resold with very little way to trace it back to a specific stolen bar. Melted gold has no serial number and no fingerprint. Once it's poured into a new shape on the other side of the world, it's effectively gone for good. So this case closes with a strange split running right down the middle of it. Legally, there's real resolution here. A convicted organizer serving 4 years with a 22 million Canadian dollars restitution order hanging over him for the next 4 decades. A getaway driver serving over 13 years in a US federal prison on the gun charges tied to the same conspiracy. 2 Air Canada employees facing charges for allegedly using inside access to pull the whole thing off. And an active extradition request aimed at dragging the last holdout back from India to finally face a Canadian courtroom. But the gold itself, the actual 400 kilograms that rolled out of that warehouse on a forklift on one ordinary April evening in 2023, is gone. By every indication investigators have, it's already been turned into untraceable metal somewhere far outside Canada. The case is solved. The fortune isn't. And somewhere out there, melted into rings, chains, or bars, nobody will ever match to that flight from Zurich. It's $20 million, or maybe $34 million worth of gold that simply stopped existing the moment it was reshaped. If you want more cases where the money disappears but the story doesn't, subscribe. And tell me in the comments, was this a $22 million heist or a $34 million one?